Welcome to episode 1 of the Virginia Investor Podcast. I'm a guest host today, and my job is to get to the meat of like what we're up to here with your host Stephen Glover, who's the CEO, founder of Peak Property Management out of Virginia. You want to say hi, Stephen?
Hey guys.
Good. Keeping it brief. Stephen, let's jump right into value, man. I what I'm attracted to is that when you reached out and you said, I want to start a podcast, I thought that you nailed it in ways that most people don't nail, to me, the value of a podcast. You told me that you've spent many years in rooms, at coffee shops, meeting with people, networking, bringing them value, and you see this podcast as like a modern version of doing that and being able to share that value. Tell me a little bit about building your network like the old school way in the Virginia market. Just give me a little bit of brief history on that.
Yeah, that hit the mark. I mean, the whole way that I was able to grow Peak Property Management and my network was just adding value to other people genuinely without expecting anything in return. And so when we were getting started in this industry, it was constantly just meeting real estate professionals in different industries and real estate investors and learning and asking questions and understanding their experiences and their problems. And then I would go try to solve their problems, even if it wasn't property management related. And I think once I figured out how to do that, people saw that I genuinely want other people to win. But at the same time, it really helped me understand how all this works. You know, what is their strategy? What are they trying to accomplish? And what do they need to accomplish that? And then I was able to put that together for them. And so that is one thing that I think I can really do with this podcast is build a community, a network of people that have different strategies, similar mindsets, that need different things, and we can help create the outcomes they're looking for.
Yeah, man, I'm such a big believer in that. That is a light that turned on for me at some point in my like early 30s. This idea of it's not about trying to be the most interesting person in the room. It's about being the most interested. Tell me about when did that light turn on for you that this was actually a viable business development strategy? Most people get out there and they want to get into these rooms and spray business cards and ask for business. How did it start clicking for you?
I think it clicked long before real estate. Naturally, I've always enjoyed seeing other people win. I wanted my friends to win. I was happy when good things happened to them. And I was in the fitness industry before real estate. So that was a huge leeway into seeing people hit their goals, writing programs for them, personal training, and then watching how excited they are and how much it changes their life when they become a healthier person, their relationships improve and everything like that. And so we're able to bring that to real estate. But through that fitness industry, when you're able to help people, they talk about it. Yeah. And they talk about their relationship with you and they introduce you to their friends and family. And then you're able to make an impact to them. And I realized quickly on, if I could do that in real estate as well, we would be successful and we'd be able to impact the community. And so far that's been true. And that's how we've grown this business. But it happened sometime along the line of the past few years before I got into real estate. And I think we'll touch on it later, but I also have a background of working in smaller elite teams. And those small elite teams are everything about the team and nothing about the individual and nothing about yourself. And that's the way I approach business as well.
Why don't we just jump right into that? What do you mean by these like smaller elite teams and tell me about that dynamic?
So what got me in the fitness industry in the first place was I was actually training to join the military in a special operations capacity. And so I would actually travel the nation and work with corporate and athletic teams on leadership development with a Navy SEAL that ran a fitness company. And so I helped him run his fitness company and then traveled across the nation with him, training athletic and corporate teams on leadership, communication, and teamwork. And so that really allowed me to see the bigger picture of what you can do as a team if you stop focusing on yourself and start focusing on other people. And so that's allowed me, again, to build this community, build a network, but also build a team at Peak Property Management that really serves each other and not just each individual position, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe we can bring that in the investor community as well. And there's plenty of investors I know that have that same mindset.
Yeah, man, I find that real estate is one of these spaces. Like real estate's a really abundant space, right? Like the networking rooms for real estate tend to have this mindset more so than the average kind of like business networking event
Right.
with commercial realtors or whatever, right? Um, how do you get into the rooms, man? So let's say I'm a real estate investor that's listening to this podcast. Um, I'm still working on my networking game. What are kind of like the rooms to get into in the Virginia market that you've identified, that kind of like how did you start like finding your way if you're trying to like give someone advice to kind of like follow the old school shaking hands and rubbing bellies with people?
Well, there's an easy way of just get online and Google what networking events there are in your community and start showing up. Just walk in the door, be in the room, and start talking to people. There's a lot of different ways to find out where these meetups are, where these investors are located. You can get on Facebook groups, different social media platforms. You can DM investors and ask these questions. There's a million ways you can start. But I think the important thing is once you get in that door, you're humble. You have humility. And so no one cares how many deals you've done. There's someone who's done more. No one cares if you haven't done a deal yet. There's plenty of people in those rooms that haven't done a deal. And so I think the best result, humility will breed the best result for people in those rooms because they're curious. They want to learn. They're not there with an ego, trying to be better than anyone. They're just trying to build those relationships, see how they can help the team and go from there.
So you lead with humility, right? Like why would anybody in that room, if you're being humble because you've done a bunch of deals, I feel like it's really easy to walk in a room and be like, all right, I'm just going to sandbag everybody and they're going to like me eventually when they figure out how cool I am. If I'm really someone that hasn't done a lot of deals and I'm like, I got no problem being humble because I got nothing to be like super proud about. Um, how do you kind of like get over that fear? Did you have to get over that fear?
No, because I think there's no imposter syndrome when you don't try to be someone you're not. There's no fear when you're okay and you have enough confidence to be humble, to not know what you're doing. And so when I got into real estate, I was partner in a property management company. Day one into real estate, not having any background in property management or being a real estate agent or anything like that. And one of the first things I did was reach out to brokers and agents and investors that were already in my network and just let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing now. I don't know anything about it. Can we grab lunch? Can we grab coffee? Can we chat? I want to learn. I'm interested in seeing how I can serve this community and how we could bring a better product to the market. Can you help me? And those people, people who are already successful and have already understand their industry and have the confidence are more than willing to spend their time with you if you approach it like that.
Yeah, what I'm hearing there, you have the ask of can you help me, but you lead with like a mission, right?
Right.
Like you're not just saying, "Hey, I'm trying to make a bunch of money, can you throw me money?" Right?
Right.
You're
Right.
saying, "I'm trying to build a good business to support this ecosystem, to make this place better. How can I do that?" And then you're asking for advice.
You also don't walk up to a Navy SEAL and say, I want to be a Navy SEAL. Can you make me a Navy SEAL? And then the Navy SEAL just says, yes, cool. Like you've earned it.
Yeah.
So like part of that humility comes from going up to these guys that I was training with back in the day who had the highest amount of respect ever. And I would train with them and talk to them and meet them out at events and stuff like that. And I would let them know what mission I was on, but I didn't deserve anything. I had to work for their respect and earn their respect. And a lot of times that's at 3 and 4 in the morning. It could be at 1 a.m., in the middle of the night. It could be in long endurance events. It could be a lot of different places where there's a lot of struggle and a lot of opportunity for excuses, and you don't make those. And so going up to those guys and trying to earn their respect, which who knows how good of a job I did, but at least attempting and learning how, doing my best at earning their respect. Then you go in the real estate world and earn the respect of brokers and agents stuff. It's a little bit easier, I think, to do, but yeah, you got to work for it. There's plenty of people that contact me and say, hey, I want to do this, or hey, I want to do that. Can you tell me everything you know? And the answer, if you can Google it, you probably shouldn't be asking the question. You probably shouldn't be using that person's time. You probably should really do your research and understand how you want to use the time together the most wisely, and then go put those actions in place, like go take action, and that person will notice and want to continue to work with you and help you.
So it sounds like with these Navy SEALs, earning their respect was like doing some hard training alongside of them.
And not making excuses. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you're doing these endurance events or going through these selection processes or just doing hard things next to them, you have a good attitude. You're looking out for the team. You're not feeling sorry for yourself. You're looking at your teammates first, the team gear, the team equipment first, and making sure the team is squared away before you worry about yourself. And that's the idea behind it. And I do want to point out, to be very clear, that I was not a Navy SEAL. I was not in military special operations. I couldn't get in. I couldn't even begin the process because I couldn't get past medical. I had traumatic brain injury from a motorcycle accident back in the day. So I did not serve. I want to make that clear. But I spent years working alongside folks in the special operations community, and that really is what kind of forged my mindset into who I am today. So I'm very proud of it.
Interesting, man. That is something to be proud of. So what's the equivalent of that in real estate, right? Like if it's like not making excuses, making sure everybody's got their like equipment right for like these like endurance challenges when you're doing in fitness. What's the equivalent of like earning it in the real estate space?
That's a great question. To me, it's being a successful leader because then it gives you the opportunity to make an impact. I wanted to join the military and go into special operations to make the highest impact I possibly could make with my brain and my body. And I didn't get that opportunity. So now I have real estate, I have a company, I have employees on the team, I have investors where I can care for their property, we have tenants that we need to look out for. And the best way I can serve is to be a good leader, build a strong team, create the right experiences for our company to then create an impact and serve and do well for the community. And I think while to me it stands nowhere close to serving in the military, it's still something I can do that is somewhat respectable.
I dig it, man. Like this like attitude of service is just like emanating from you everywhere, right? Like and when I talk to you now, you're obviously this like formed leader. You've proven it. You've built a team. You have a company. Your definition of earning it now is employing the resources of my company to drive results for people. When you were getting into rooms and you didn't know about real estate and you didn't already have these chops, like if I'm somebody that's listening to this podcast trying to figure out what does it look like for me to earn it, what value can I offer brokers and agents and people like that would allow me the opportunity to earn something, like what is the ask here?
I remember meetings where I walked into and I thought I knew everything, and it's like getting hit by a train. And I would go back and tell that person months later how much I've learned.
Yeah.
And I would ask them for like we literally got a meeting ended early because he was like, "You don't understand anything I'm saying," and I was like, "You're right. You're speaking Chinese to me right now."
Yeah.
And I hit the same guy up about 6 months later and said, "Hey, let's grab lunch." Had a conversation with him, and he ended up being my private lender for a couple of years and helped me buy somewhere around 10 to 14 properties with his cash because he saw how much I cared and picked it up and how much it meant to me to meet back up and earn his respect. There's been other times where there's absolutely no value I could add. There's so many times where I met with people who were already established and already doing well where I had no place adding value to them. But one example is I met with a mortgage lender who was influential in the market and knew a bunch of investors. And he took time out of his day to help me understand lending and finance and things like that. I asked what he was looking for at the end of the meeting, and most everyone will ask this question. Very few people you ever hear from again. They'll say, "Well, what are you looking for? What would help you in business?" And so I asked that same question. He said he was looking for certain types of commercial borrowers, certain amounts, and everything like that. Within 1 week, I was having meetings constantly, and I met a guy who needed I think it was a $4 million commercial refi. Had lunch with him, coffee, something like that, and he was having trouble finding the right bank to work with. And banks, they have different buckets that they need to fill at any given time. This particular bank was looking for exactly the kind of business that this guy had. After the lunch, I connected them. They ended up doing a deal. It was a $4 million refi. Yeah. And that lender sent us a lot of business after that because he was like, "Man, you looked out for me. You listened. You cared about what I wanted." And I immediately came through to add value. So I couldn't share any knowledge with him. He was 20, 30 years in the industry. But I worked to find a lead and put that lead in front of him to show him that I cared about his time.
I feel like we just uncovered like a super universal thing that anybody in this mind space can do, right? Like if you are the person that is walking into rooms trying to meet as many people as possible, you already have validation of like that effort, right? So if you're doing that, you end every meeting with what can I do for you, and you start putting that into like your list of things you're looking for. They already know that you're taking other meetings with other people, and to start connecting those dots, right? Like I know that's exactly how I've built my influence, right? It's just like figure out a way to get into a room and do something I can serve. Before I could serve with anybody, my only thing that I could do was curiosity, right? And if you continue to compounding ask the questions of like what works for you, what are you looking for, and you just start connecting those dots, people will take that chance on you. That's kind of like how it happened for you?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I just knew I had to add value somehow, and I couldn't do
Yeah.
it through my knowledge of real estate at the time. But what I did have was a network.
Yeah.
And I had a very powerful network, and it was because I'm constantly for years trying to give back and trying to help other people improve. And it was always without excuses, without any, it was always unconventional ways of thinking. So there's been so many people that I've met with that I've tried to help other property management companies in our market get up to speed. I've talked to investors plenty and tried to help them get up to speed. And they will always ask the question, well, thank you so much for your time and all of this information. How can I help you? And probably less than 1% you hear back. And I
Yeah.
think it's because they think there's no way they could possibly add value. But that's an excuse. Like there's very few people that will get up and really try to pay you back for that time. And it's never expected for me at all.
Yeah.
But it does mean something when you hear back and they're like, hey, you should work with Steven on this, or this guy's a good guy to talk to, or something like that. It does mean something.
Yeah, it is. I won't say it's surprising, but it is like eye-openingly fast how quickly you can build trust with people when you follow through on your promises,
Right.
and you show that. I feel like you and I are kind of kindred spirits in this way. Like you show up in this like spirit of service, and at first the doubter might kind of like look at you funny, like, yeah, really, I've heard this a bunch of times. But the moment that you actually follow through with it, it creates this like validation in their eyes that you are of a different breed of cat or level of
Right.
character, however you want to put that. Compound that over 6 months, and you're there, right? Like you have a couple people that are promoting you, right?
Right. And well, look at our relationship, for example.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, you're on stage,
Yeah.
and I'm taking notes at a big national conference, and you're telling everyone just the gospel, and it's so beautiful and it's awesome to hear. And out of all respect to other speakers, out of all the speakers, I'm like, this is the keynote I needed to hear, and it just resonated beautifully. And then at some point, I reached out to you with zero value to add, and the idea is like, for whatever reason, you decided that you would then either A, respond to me, and then B, continue to keep in touch with me when your time is very valuable. And I think it probably was because I showed that I was going to follow through and take action on what you told me to do, and the advice you gave me. And so in theory, I shouldn't be talking to you right now. Like in my opinion, you should be on a stage somewhere and not wasting your time with me. But then now we've progressed to where you're volunteering to be the host of and to help me introduce this podcast, which is really special to me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and by the way, it is a self-feeding cycle, right? Like because you did it, now I'm in it for you. Because I'm in it for you, you're in it for me, and I think we're on the way to developing this like awesome relationship, right?
Right.
You get first invite to like anything cool I'm doing, right? And I know that's gonna pay me back. It's interesting, man. I feel really lucky where I'm at right now with Vendoroo in the sense that my partners, I have a seat at the table, right? So like, it's obvious that people see my value, but they don't just see my value. They're like, they see it and are proactively protecting it. They're like, hey, as this company grows, we need to like understand that we're codifying this kind of like ethos that Pablo has. But that's not always the case, right? So somebody that might be maybe more junior in their company, you're the leader of your company, you were a partner too, right? But somebody that's more junior in their company that's starting to grow their network, if they get looked at funny by the I don't want you to go to this networking event because, there's not going to be leads there. I need you to like stay home and like do this like task oriented thing. What kind of advice would you give them for managing upwards when it comes to this idea of like building a network like this?
To manage upward, I would have a number of responses to that, but
Yeah.
manage upwards largely is just build a better relationship with the folks on your team, because you need relationships up and down the chain of command. You need influence up and down the chain of command. So if you are in a junior position and you want to put yourself in certain positions, one, you probably can do it and don't need your supervisor's approval. Two, you build influence by building your relationship. So it's like I always say the fastest way out of a job you don't like is to do really good at it. Or I should say I've heard someone else say that. It's not, I didn't make that up, but
Yeah.
I say it to my team a lot, where I'm like, if you're really unhappy in your position, do the best you can at it, because I won't have any other option than to promote you out of that position. But it's similar if you don't like your boss. Build a better relationship with your boss so you have more influence and you can do more with your boss, or your boss will listen to you better. But to the point of, no, you can't put yourself in that room because there's not leads. The investors that Peak Property Management have, like, we have a lot of different types of investors, but many of them are the type that either are accidental landlords, inherit their properties, or they are true investors and they buy in bulk and they rehab and stuff like that. But I would say it's not the majority that are the rehab and renovate and refi investors. They are the investors that have capital and they need to buy property to put their money into and things like that. And largely our network base came from going to all the meetups that are the buy distressed properties and fix them up and then refi and things like that, because those people are so loud about their business and they preach about their business, which is awesome. And I love it. The whole we buy houses.
Yeah.
And so when their family members need to, or want to invest in real estate, but they don't really want to make it their, full-time job, that those people know me and they know I'm going to take care of them, and then they'll refer Peak Property Management. So even if your leads, if your direct clients are not going to be in the room, I would focus on whether it's the relationships that matter or not, versus are you reaching out to your leads directly?
Yeah, I like that, man. I like that. Well, let's talk about this, right? So now when you started, you didn't know anything about real estate. Now you've been doing this for a long time. You've been in all these rooms. You've been asking all the questions. I feel like you do know a lot about real estate. I'm assuming you're based in Richmond, right? So you're probably about as dangerous as anybody in the Richmond market. Like, what is unique about the Richmond real estate market for somebody that's like curious about it? How would you kind of like compare it to other markets, or how do you normally describe it?
It's an incredible market to be in. Absolutely incredible. Lots of development, lots of people getting pushed down from DC because it's too expensive. And there's other submarkets around Richmond. Central Virginia as a whole is just incredible because there's submarkets around Richmond that are also less expensive than Richmond that people can invest in, that are up and coming and things like that. Transportation being right off I-95. There's so many good things about Richmond as a market. We're blessed to be here because I've talked to other property management companies that have great business development skills and good marketing campaigns that may not be able to grow as fast as we can. We are just in a really strong market for investing. I think Virginia as a whole is a great state to invest in, but Richmond in particular, what I've seen is we will get a bunch of out-of-town investors that look at Richmond and they will ask what zip codes they should invest in. They will ask about neighborhoods and things like that. What people don't understand about Richmond, and what is very interesting, is that you could cross over a street and your ARV, or after repair value, could vary by $100,000.
Interesting.
Because you're in a certain neighborhood versus on the other side of the street. And so when people ask, that's why it's really good to talk to experts and professionals in the market, because you could look at, and say, well, these properties are within a quarter mile of this other property, so here's my comparables. And like that might pass an appraisal, but when you actually go to resell the property, it's going to be tough to get the price that you think you're going to get. So you talk to an expert, you talk to people who have been in the market for a while, and they understand what side of the street you want to be on, or what the difference is going to be if you're on the other side of the street. So Richmond has some really cool characteristics. really cool neighborhoods, very diverse and a ton of development, but you don't go by zip codes. You don't necessarily go by neighborhoods. You need to know what side of the street you're on and really talk to experts when it comes to
Interesting.
that.
Why is that? Like that's pretty unique, right? Like here in Jacksonville, it's like, are you in the '09 zip code or in the
Right.
'08, right? Like and you can just throw a dart and you know that that's going to happen. What makes it? What is that? Is that kind of like remnants of like long historical differences in neighborhoods and stuff like that? Is
Yeah, I would bet like some of them literally are just called different neighborhoods and it's just
Yeah.
on a different side of the street and you're not in the neighborhood that you think you're in, but you're close to it.
Yeah.
Of course, some of it could be county, city lines. There could also be school districts, whether you're in the right school district or not. And it depends on your investing strategy. If it's a rental property, it might not matter as much. If you're doing a flip, it absolutely would matter. But yeah, I think there's several differences, but it's very true in Richmond, and that's there. The number of times I've met with investors in the early days and pulled out a legit map, like fold out map, and said, "What are you talking about when you're talking about this neighborhood? Because if you're looking at this house right here, it's not in that neighborhood, and you need to look at comparables in that area, actual like recent sales and things like that, to help people understand this market. And as Peak grows, I'm really excited about doing that in some other markets as well."
Yeah, that's cool, man. So what I'm hearing is Richmond's a growth market, right? Like it has a net positive migration of people spilling over from DC, going into the Richmond bucket. That bucket's overflowing into other buckets that are surrounding
Right.
Richmond. I've also heard, right? So Jacksonville, where I'm from, is like that too. In Jacksonville, there was a long time where kind of like the old guard was in charge, right? Like it was kind of like there was a very small amount of people that controlled a lot of the decision making, and it was kind of held back from progress. And I find that that's kind of normal in southern cities. We eventually kind of like diluted out of that, right? Like where are you guys as far as kind of like the good old boys network versus ideas and welcoming to new people?
I'm actually appreciative to some extent that there is a lot of old money in Richmond, a lot of it,
Yeah.
a lot of it, and especially if you know where to look. But it's deceiving because I grew up in this market in Richmond, and I always thought there was no opportunity here. I was like, I got to move somewhere else. So I lived in Florida for a few years. I lived in Northern Virginia for a few years. But when I came back to Richmond and started working on my network and learning about who's here and what's going on, and as the city started to increase its development, you really start to understand how much money is in the city and how much opportunity is in this market and surrounding markets and things like that. And so the people who are learning that and are catching on to that are absolutely going to take advantage of that and do very well in this market. And I think there's a long runway ahead of opportunity. I don't think anyone's missed the boat. In fact, I still think it's early for Richmond. I think the next 10 years are going to look awesome. Assuming that we stay together as a nation, I think the market of Richmond is going to do incredible over the next 10 years.
Interesting. What's driving that? Like, what are kind of like the economic kind of drivers of Richmond? Like, what's driving that?
Well, to me, it's there was a neighborhood called Scott's Addition, which was more or less abandoned warehouses, and it was acres and acres and acres of abandoned warehouses. And this was maybe about 10 years ago. There were developers that went in there and just started just developing, just redeveloping everything, either knocking down buildings or redeveloping warehouses. And then all of a sudden, you started to see all kinds of mom and pop restaurants come in
Yeah.
that were really unique and diverse. And then VCU stepped up its game and started expanding and building all kinds of things around here. Then the sports scene stepped up, and then we had shout out to Sports Backers, which did an incredible job bringing a massive 10K here and all kinds of outdoor festivities.
Yeah.
And so with all of these festivals and outdoor parks and everything, money just flooded into Richmond, I think, with all kinds of opportunity, and people really saw it for the city that it was. And then now we have all kinds of outside money coming in from New York and DC and things like that to continue to develop. So I think probably one of the biggest factors is the location, really just being like south of DC and a different like cost of living.
Yeah.
but also being right on the James River, a scenic city. It's just a good place to be.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Probably pretty temperate climate, kind of like where you're at right there, and the Four Seasons. What how's affordability, man? Like, what's kind of like price point? How are people are like locals complaining about affordability? You're talking about a lot of like people moving in that normally drives a little bit of that, but you're saying that there's like a lot of space to grow. What's kind of like price point? What are rent price points? Like, what's it looking like these days?
I think our average rent is just under $2,000 a
Okay.
unit, and so of course it varies throughout the market, but things are still affordable. They definitely skyrocketed throughout COVID and shortly after COVID, but they're starting to tamper out a little bit. They're not going down by any means at the time of this podcast, but they're starting to level out. And even if they level out for the next year or two, the
Yeah.
people who bought in 2020, 2021 saw such a massive increase
Yeah.
in rent that they'll be, are probably already wildly exceeding the returns that they expected. And now people just need to worry about the interest rates. So for refis and stuff like that. But I would say Richmond is still an affordable market. Of course, with its attractiveness increasing, it's becoming more expensive, but it's still affordable.
And it sounds like buy and hold is a good strategy there based on this like growth metrics. Is like the Airbnb scene alive and well? Like what are the sectors that are doing well? Is there like light industrial and stuff like that, right? Like tell me more about like kind of like the real estate stock and what people are
I,
buying.
I actually can't think of what's doing bad.
Interesting.
There's Airbnb, there's Pad Split,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of just long-term rentals or mid-term rentals, flipping houses. The people I know that are doing it, it's a little bit harder to find those opportunities now with interest rates, but there are a lot of investors working a lot of different strategies that are doing some amazing things in this market and throughout Virginia, a lot of which aren't showing up to the meetups and aren't widely known and aren't in the articles and don't want their name out there, some of which I've already asked to be guests on this podcast that are doing some really cool outside the box things. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about is I think I'm way better at asking questions than I am at answering questions. And I'm really excited to get some of these people that are doing some incredible things that started off just like any other investor. They didn't inherit millions of dollars or anything like that. They started off just like everyone else. They're unconventional, think outside the box, and they're doing wildly different things that are incredible, but you won't see them in news articles. You won't see them at the meetups.
Yeah, perfect transition because I wanted to get into like talk about the market a little bit, and then I want to talk about some of these like non-obvious strategies and strategists that you have access to. Can you kind of share with me a little bit of what is a real estate strategy? What's the last time that someone made you go, oh, that's an interesting way to do it?
Well, he'll be a guest soon, but there's one person in particular that started buying single family houses, and now he is flipping large commercial office buildings. And when he's flipping them, he's largely just 1031ing, and he's stepping up in size and scale with everyone that he's doing. And then when he needs cash, he might sell two 1031 one of them and then keep the capital from the other one. And we're talking likely millions of dollars each deal that he's flipping. And it's just incredible. I mean, he started again, with just doing single family houses and just eventually just took a few very bold steps, got added a bunch of zeros to the deal, and then is just doing kind of the same method, using the same type of team at a much larger scale. And it's been incredible to see what he's building.
Interesting, man. Interesting. Any other one that you want to kind of like tease out a little bit of like a unconventional strategy that you're looking forward to sharing?
Yeah, there's people that I want to talk to about pad splits and what they're doing there. There's people that I know that have bought mansions and have done short-term rentals slash rent by the hour for social media and Instagram creators and influencers and stuff to rent out.
Yeah.
There have been people that, of course, flip and do long-term and mid-term. There are one person in particular that I'd really like to talk to and get on this podcast that was hunted by the investment banker world and was lured into that with all kinds of potential to make tons of money. And he said no, and said, I want to be a general contractor. And he's done very well for himself and has all kinds of investments and a beautiful family. There is another buddy of mine who, again, started off, I think his first investment was a duplex that he talked his boss at the time into paying for. He said he would do all the work and have his boss fund it. And now he's selling $30 million medical buildings. So there's a lot of cool things and different strategies, but their mindsets, I don't want this podcast to be surface level. I don't want to sit in front of these people and just say, cool, so tell me about some deals and tell me what the Burr method means and tell me what I want to talk about things that aren't on Google. I want to get inside of these people's heads and really learn how they work and what made them take some of the risk or make some of the decisions that they made and document that. And that way, when other investors are feeling a little froggy or need to do something different or feeling creative, they can look at this and then tap into some of that knowledge and some of that experience. Or we build a VIP community that brings these people to in-person events, and then we can all talk and learn from these people in person if you want to kind of follow in those footsteps. So that's my dream of getting people in this podcast, adding value, getting that information out there, and really making this useful and not just taking up space on the internet.
I love it, dude. Let's start with you, man. You have built now Peak Property Management. You have over 1,000 doors. Is it, you have over 1,000 doors. That is for anybody that isn't very well versed in property management. That's a significant number, right? Like the average property manager has maybe like 200 doors kind of thing. So you're like 5x above that. That is something people look up to in our industry. Your mindset around leadership. Talk to me about kind of like biggest challenges as you were growing a team, and can you think of like a moment that you were really, really challenged and every day?
Every day. Yeah. This morning. Yeah.
So give me a story about that, man. Give me a story that kind of like explains the mindset piece of like a major challenge.
Man, yeah, I don't even know where to start. That's a wonderful question, but
not a great question. It's not very like precise, right? So I'm not like doing you any favors.
I like the idea of the question, but there's so many, like I think of 100 different challenges, and I guess like,
well, let's make the target smaller, right? Like it's not easy to recruit and keep high level talent when you're like, you want to come work for a property management company.
Right. Yeah.
But I've met your staff. I've met your management team, right? Like at least one person from your management team, very high level. How do you overcome the idea of like smaller operation in the real estate space, attracting great people?
Man, thank you for making that target more clear, because this is a great question.
Good.
And I think a lot of business owners or people who want to build a team can genuinely learn from this, because when you start small, you don't have the money. You don't have the money to attract people, especially start small with zero experience and you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. Meaning you're not going to win unless you bring people on the team that can bring that experience and bring that knowledge and bring the right feedback to your team. And so the idea was, when I got started, I knew nothing about property management, literally nothing. And so the first year, which was in 2018, the first year going into 2019, I had to learn about the industry. I had to learn about investing. I had to learn about how to take care of investors and how to manage property. I had to learn about maintenance. I had to learn about leasing and laws and fair housing. There were so many aspects of this business that I had to learn that I knew nothing about. And in fact, before April of 2018, I didn't know there was an industry called property management, just to be clear. Yeah. And so leading into 2019, it clicked and it felt like I just understood it. And so in 2019, I actually ended up buying somewhere around like 10 to 12 investment properties of my own. And I just understood it. And then I could get experience as a landlord, being my own landlord, what mattered to me. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to work with some clients. I felt confident being able to get out there and get some clients. And so we started business development. I felt confident we had everything legally in place and to really care for these properties. But I didn't have any processes. I didn't know what systems. I had no experience. And so the idea was, how do you get people on your team that have the experience, that have the knowledge, and you don't have any money? And so I had to recruit people that were more experienced, more knowledgeable, and squared away A players and get them on my team. The way I did that was selling the vision all day long. There were people that came to my team over the past few years and took a pay cut because they believed in the vision throughout the interview process. And so, and I would never blow smoke. I would tell them stories about what we've done as a company and what we plan to do. And then I would lay out all the challenges we're going to have. But then I would lay out what that looks like if we overcome the challenges. If you are a good fit, this is what it's going to look like for you being on the team. And then I stick by it and I do everything I can to make that happen once I hire them. And then what happens is we follow that and we likely exceed those expectations. And then we work within our network of our team to hire other people that they know are good and in the market. So we were able to recruit some of the best people in property management to join our team. And then that allowed us to have this reputation that was just beyond what I could imagine. And eventually we were just selecting, we're up to 1,000 units now, but we've turned down over 4,000 in the past 4 years, just as a commitment to our current clients to make sure we did not lose our way. But that's allowed us to work and talk to hundreds, if not thousands of investors about their strategy and about what they're trying to do, about where they're investing, what the results have been and things like that. And I feel like now I have a good sense of what's happening. We built our team to 35 employees. And I feel like it's time to it's almost selfish of me to not try to help the community and share some of this information and build a network around that.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I'm such a big believer in selling vision, right? And like people want to enroll in a story and they want to know what part of the story that they are. And the more the more I become a better and better entrepreneur, it's very clear to me that the way that you reward them is by showing them where they are on the journey, showing them like if they are keeping up with their end of the deal, and then when you succeed, show them that you succeeded, so that it's like another thing of like, listen, this isn't just a vision, this is real, and
Right.
reward them for it, right? Like, what is, when you sell this vision, what is in it for them?
It is, I generally try not to seek people who are incentivized just by money. Obviously, people need money. I understand that. And coming from an employer, people are like, oh, you just don't want to pay your people. People who know me know that isn't true. That's not where I come from. I've always sought out people who care about the accomplishment and know and trust. If I can help them believe that if they accomplish, they will be rewarded, then that's what that's my day to day is how do I help my team accomplish and reward them? And so we have a happy team, we have an accomplished team, and they get rewarded and they get paid well. They get increases and bonuses and a great work environment that we're scaling and building out new offices and things like that. But I think you can't, it is very difficult to sell a vision if you don't believe in it and you're not passionate about it. And so no one else is going to follow you or believe in your vision if you're just blowing smoke. So you have to be passionate and genuine about what you're saying. And that will come across to the other person as, all right, I want to give this guy a shot. Plus, he's proven it in a few different capacities in the past. I want to give this guy a shot, and I'll join his team. And then soon those people stick around because then it pays off.
I love it, man. Is there, as somebody that sells vision a lot and really believes in it, I find that where people stumble in selling vision, like it's like day one, you sell this vision. It's wonderful, right? Like then you get into it and you get dragged down by the day to day and all the stuff that you got to do. And, it's easy to kind of like lose your way in the vision, right? Like, how do you keep that present? Do you guys, like, do you have some kind of like an all hands meeting or some way that you keep the vision as part of the way that you measure people in like performance reviews or anything like that? Like, how do you keep that vision present in the day to day to keep people rowing on that?
I think the right answer would probably be performance reviews or 15 minutes to ask how they're feeling. I'm not that kind of guy. Like I'm just not going to do that. And I rarely do performance reviews. I communicate often and early. And as a team, we're communicating daily about performance and about feedback and about just ways that we can help support each other better. And so we don't need these reviews. But I think as far as keeping that, I always say like burnout is actually when you lose sight of the long-term vision. So I don't believe burnout is really just burnout. I think someone is here and they're here for a reason. And if they feel burnt out, it's because they've lost their sight. They've lost their long-term vision. And if you can help them create, keep, and maintain that long-term vision, you don't get burnt out. So you get a team that's always fired up and keeps moving. The way that I do that as a leader personally is just, you have to make it part of your culture that we love challenges. Champions want challenges. They welcome challenges and they welcome adversity. We don't just want to avoid it. We're in business because we solve problems, and we're not going to have a good and productive business if there are no problems to solve. And so our culture is that we welcome challenges. And so when challenges happen, good. Now we get a chance to solve them. We get a chance to make an impact. We get a chance to approach it and learn from it. And if we made a mistake and we screwed up, good. We can now take ownership of that, and we can talk about how we're going to do better and improve the process or improve the experience. And so if we have that mindset when these challenging things happen, or we're dealing with very difficult tenants or difficult owners or difficult maintenance issues or vendor problems, good. Let's figure out how to do this, because this is part of the job and we want to be the best. So let's just take it for what it is, and let's find a solution and keep rolling. And then if we do note that someone on our team has some really tough personal issues or really tough really tough week or something like that, our team culture is to step in and help and support them and recognize that. And so we have a motto where we say, choose to carry more. And so we want each team member to look and see how they can carry more for the team. When I was training with special operations groups or training with the fitness companies, we would get together as a group as part of an evolution. And let's say you had 4 people on your team, you had to do 100 push-ups as a team, and it was a race. Well, every push-up that you did was one less push-up that your teammates had to do to get to 100. And so we have that mentality throughout our team that every push-up you do is one less that your teammate has to do. And so if our team walks around and chooses to carry more, we can take that weight from our teammate that's feeling a little burnout, that's really caught up in the day-to-day and really needs to get through that week. And then they're going to be feeling better next week. So we're going to make sure they realize what the vision is and what we're here for.
I like it, man. I like it. As I hear you saying good and good, it reminds me of the special ops guy, like Jocko Willink.
Jocko
That's kind
Willink.
of yeah, that's
Yep,
his
huge
that's
fan.
like motto
Yep.
for it. Yeah. Big fan of that stuff, man. I'm assuming that there is something in the interview process that screens out for people like this. Like, is there, like, when you're interviewing people or putting out job apps or anything like that? Is there things that you build in that allows you to test if somebody's going to respond well to challenges like this?
That's a good question. I mean, we're still kind of like right in between that stage of more corporate interviews / just gut feeling and instinct interviews based off answers. We're kind of straddling that line. So I think we probably need to head towards, and I think part of that, I really trust my team, but part of that is I am moving further away from the hiring process. And so we may need to put some more processes in place as far as like personality tests and DNA analysis, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But our team, our culture is so ingrained in our team, and we have happy team members that are tenured and have been here a while. They know what to look for in these people, and they know if they're going to take ownership. And that starts with the interview process, is seeing if they're willing to take ownership with a few things and seeing how they respond. Are they responsive? Do they communicate well? What happens if they show up a few minutes late to the interview, or they say, hey, this is 100% on me? Or do they say traffic was bad? I'll take it if they say it's 100% on me. Let's roll. I'll take that all day long and keep going with the interview. But they say traffic is bad. They're not going to be a good fit.
Yeah. Once you have it, it's I hate to use this example because I'm a Dolphins fan, but it's kind of like when the Patriots were rolling. Once you have that like culture embedded in the locker room, it's like it's pretty easy to tell when somebody isn't a
Right.
fit, right?
Yeah, it stands out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, man. Hey, I feel like that was a pretty good display on talking about mindset and how it relates to solving problems and getting in on all of this stuff. I feel like we've covered kind of like what we're going to see on this podcast, a couple of these like interesting people that do things differently. Talked about the Richmond market, talked about kind of like how to build a network, man. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you came in here hoping that we would lay down on this podcast here?
No, I think this is a good start. The podcast is going to be fluid and expansive, but the whole idea is whether it's investors on the podcast or real estate professionals that can add value and expertise, we want to go deep and we want to build a community through that to serve others and make an impact. And I think this is a great way to kick it off. We're going to be active on a lot of different social media platforms and a pretty big digital presence as well. So we would encourage people to interact and engage on those and look out for information and insights and updates, market updates or legal updates and things like that on those platforms. And I think outside of that, it's got to take some time to spin up, but I think this is going to be a really interesting product and hopefully a helpful product for investors in Virginia.
Yeah, man. As you know, I've kind of bet my career the last 10 years on the power of community building for business development. And I think the number one thing that really makes a community stand out is the level of like give a crapness of the person that's starting the community. And I can see that you got that in spades, man. So I'm betting that this is going to turn into like an awesome content stream, an awesome community. And thanks for letting me be part of this episode 1, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored to have you on, and I'm excited. And of course, maybe episode 100 will bring you back for an update.
If I'm so lucky.
Right. Well, thank you, Pablo. It's been great. I look forward to getting this kicked off over the next few weeks. And thanks for helping us start.
Hell yeah. Cool, man.